Back in May, the Associated Press had a remarkable stream of stories, great investigative reporting from the Associated Press about what the CDC was doing in terms of providing expert CDC advice on how we could reopen things in America. And that AP reporting resulted in the initially leaked and then ultimately soft-launched quiet publication of the first CDC guidelines on how a number of different entities in the United States, including schools, should decide whether and how it's safe to reopen. I want to show you the flowchart from that guidance that, again, first leaked and then was very quietly released without any announcement in May after the AP did that reporting. You see the headline here, Reopening Schools During the COVID-19 Pandemic. The purpose of this tool is to assist administrators in making decisions regarding K-12 schools during the COVID-19 pandemic. Then in the first column, the top of that column says, in bold blue type, should you consider opening? And then it gives you a checklist. And what's the first item on the checklist? Well, is the school in a community no longer requiring significant mitigation? That's the first thing you need to check. You're trying to decide if your school should open. The CDC says the first question you need to answer is the school in a community where the virus levels are low enough that it no longer requires significant mitigation, meaning significant intervention to try to control the virus there? If the answer to that is no, you still need significant mitigation in your community, you still got a lot of virus circulating, then the answer from the CDC back in May is, okay, then your flowchart here is over. Skip right to the big stop sign. Do not open. If you cannot check off that first criteria, you cannot open. That's the CDC as recently as 2 months ago. CDC guidance saying plain as day with icons, you cannot open any school anywhere in America if the virus is prevalent enough in that community to require significant mitigation measures. And right now in America, that's a lot of America. Right? Because our epidemic is a catastrophe, coast to coast. Of course, the White House yesterday just released new school opening guidelines under the banner of the CDC. These new guidelines they just released don't even address the issue of whether schools should be safely reopened or not. They just tell you how to reopen. The Washington Post today was first to report that portions of these so-called CDC guidelines were not actually written by the CDC. They were written by White House staffers. But, you know, the early drafts don't go away. And even though they didn't make a big deal out of them and they didn't send out a press release or brag about them when they put them out because they didn't want to make the White House mad, the CDC did tell us, not just in black and white, but in bold blue type with a big red stop sign. They told us back in May, before the White House got its mitts on their recommendations, to not open schools anywhere in America until community spread was well under control. If you are in a community where there is a lot of virus, there is no safe way to open your school, per the CDC, before the White House started writing their guidelines and calling them CDC guidelines. Now they have, submarined that recommendation. They're hoping, I guess, we didn't print this stuff out before they tried to supersede it. Our national response to coronavirus remains terrible. What we are learning over the course of this thing, though, is that citizens can force the government to get better at it. Boy, is it hard with a government this bad. But the alternative is to give up. And why not? And the reasons not to give up are tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of the lives of our fellow Americans, including potentially ourselves.